Okay, so next up, we have Megan Jankowski, personified pigment, cinnabar paint, mortuary patterns, and bioarchaeology at Huaca Las Ventanas, which is a later Sican site, but also has a Gainazo component underneath. So attendant, but a little bit different, and I think you will enjoy this presentation. Megan is currently a master's student studying anthropology at George Mason University. Her research focuses on bioarchaeology, mortuary archaeology, cinnabar analysis, archaeometry on the north coast of Peru, and a specialty in Middle Sican culture, which is about 400 years later than the civilization I was just talking to you about. Her thesis research focuses on the site of Huaca Las Ventanas, one of 6 main huacas of the Middle Sican capital. This red pigment study is a continuation of her thesis research, analyzing red pigment excavated at Huaca Las Ventanas through photogrammetry, those 3-dimensional models, PXRF, which is portable X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, digital image enhancement, and soil color analysis. And with that, I will hand that off to you, Megan. Thank you.
Let's set a timer so I don't go over. Okay. In our paper, we present a case study involving the ongoing analysis of red pigment in context with burial patterns, identity, and political organization of the Middle Sican on the north coast of Peru. Focus falls upon burials at Huaca Las Ventanas, one of the monumental adobe platform pyramids at the site of Sican. Here, archaeological science methods, burial patterns, and skeletal biology may open windows on previously unseen kinds of identity and political relationships, and what the use of valuable resources can tell us about the complex social organization of the Middle Sican state. Also, please know that this presentation will contain some images of human remains, and we do so with permission from local descendant communities. Oh, sorry. Gotcha. The Sican culture dominated the north coast of Peru from roughly 800 CE to 1350 CE. The Middle Sican period, which runs from 900 to 1050/1100 CE, represented the technological, organizational, and economic apex of the northern north coast pre-Hispanic cultures. Sican dominance was established in as little as 50 years. Their outsized economic power was forged not by military conquest, but by alliance building and trade networks. At the center of it all was the sprawling capital Sican, the core of which is located in the Pomac Desert Forest within the La Leche Valley, part of the greater Lambayeque River Valley complex. The Middle Sican appears as a theocratic state focused on the ideologically charged image of the Sican deity, which served as the central iconographic figure at the elite ancestral veneration cult. The heart of the Sican capital contains 6 monumental truncated adobe pyramids, forming an elite funerary precinct. Seen around here. Since 1990, Azumi Shimada's Sican Archeological Project has helped define the Sican lords were a relatively small and reproductively isolated group of people. This may have had both ancestral and cultural ties to southern Ecuador. The Muchique people were biologically distinct from the descendants of the late Moche, who we infer made up the bulk of the regionally non-elite population. Locals unambiguously reproduce diverse aspects of earlier Moche mortuary patterns, forms of ritual killing, and artistic iconographic conventions. Altogether, these are taken as signs of a Muchique ethnic group. Currently, the Sican Archeological Project is testing a hypothesis that each of the ancestor veneration temples seen above the 6 largest huacas, so seen kind of in the middle region, are represented a single elite lineage, serving as a locus of ancestor worship, a symbol of political propaganda, and an uncontestable place-making tombstone represented a lineage founder and their descendant communities per huaca. The Middle Sican funerary rituals purposely encoded diverse symbolic messages about identity, power, and status. Sican lords were buried in deep shaft tombs around the flanks of the wakas. They were lavishly appointed with affluent grave goods. Dead lords were placed in seated positions wearing metal masks bearing the face of the Sican deity. Elites were the only people that had access to gold, silver, tumbaga alloy, and gilt copper objects. A lower nobility had access to only tumbaga and bronze objects. Commoners were buried with only utilitarian bronze objects, and most commoners were buried like their Moche ancestors in the extended position on a south-north axis as seen above. Both high and low elites were buried with cinnabar paint, a red pigment made of mercury sulfide. Commoners were buried with hematite paint or red ochre, which are more accessible red paints made of hematite rock that emulate the cinnabar paint of the elites. Bioarchaeological evidence of health, stress, diet, and lifestyle indicate that the Sican lords lived lives of great privilege and that most of the morbidity experienced in the society was concentrated among the non-elite and commoner population. And that is the location of Huaca Las Ventanas. Beginning in 2006, the Museo Nacional Sican began a long-term project at Huaca Las Ventanas, including the 2010 to 2012 rescue excavation along the north bank of the La Leche River. Many of the funerary contexts documented in this process did not fit the classic expectation of the Sican elite tombs, but resembled those of local Muchi commoners, who should not have been buried in this elite temple. This study examines the usage of valuable resources, specifically cinnabar, to better understand the singular and group identity of these individuals and what role they might have played in the organization of the Middle Sican state overall. We hypothesize that these individuals at Huaca Las Ventanas were ethnic Muchi commoners that somehow elevated to high status within the Middle Sican state, and the results of this lived experience embodied in the burials of Huaca Las Ventanas will fall somewhere in between these two groups, the elite Sican and the commoner Mochic. This research includes 27 funerary contexts of Huaca Las Ventanas, comprised of burials that had mentioned cinnabar, hematite, or any form of red pigment noted in the archaeological reports. This includes red pigment found on skeletal remains, funerary masks, burial back dirt, associated rocks, and painted mural fragments. 24 out of 27 burials tested in this project include bioarchaeological and mortuary analyses that were previously conducted as part of my thesis research during the 2024 field season of the Lambayeque Biohistory Project. 3 out of 27 of these burials have not received a full bioarchaeological and mortuary analysis, but will be included in this presentation based on the pigment analysis of associated grave goods. Our research focuses on the preliminary research results of a multi-method analysis of red pigment found at the site of Huaca Las Ventanas. For the archaeological science methods, we applied 3 types of non-destructive examinations. The first test utilizes a SciAps X505 PXRF machine to determine the elemental composition of the red pigment for a basic qualitative analysis. Parameters still need to be established, so we are treating this only as a qualitative analysis and not a quantitative until those proper cinnabar parameters are established. The second test applied the Munsell color system, a standard for soil analysis, for a visual examination of the red pigment. The third test employed the D-Stretch digital image enhancement, primarily used for rock art examination to create an optical analysis of the red pigment through 8 photo filters. The fourth test, which will not be featured in this presentation, but in futures, will include Scaniverse as a way to create 3D models in order to see the depth and the layers of that pigment presented. For the mortuary analysis, we applied Shimada's 4-tier model of Middle Sican social hierarchy and funerary variation, considering burial positions, burial orientation, metal availability, use of cinnabar, and quantity and quality of grave goods. So presence and absence of semi-precious stone beads, amber, spondylus or conus shell, single and double spouted bottles, and utilitarian plain or palateata pottery. The bioarchaeological analyses were conducted in 2024 as part of my MA thesis research at the Museo Nacional Sican in Fernández, Peru. Bioarchaeological data collection focused on the indicators of childhood biological stress, including cribroorbitallia, parotid hyperostosis, and enamel hypoplasias, infectious disease, including periostosis, physical activity patterns, including osteoarthritis of the load-bearing joint systems, injury and violence, including sharp force, blunt force, and accidental injury, and oral health, including dental caries, dental calculus, antemortem tooth loss, and periodontal disease. Pre-adult age estimation was based on a dental formation and epiphyseal fusion, while adult age estimation used transitional analysis 3. Adult biological sex was estimated using the standard morphological markers of the os coxae and skull. Using crude prevalence, common odds ratio, and G-test, the bioarchaeological data from Huaca Las Ventanas was compared to both elite and commoner comparative samples. The results of the PXRF analyses found that these burials listed above did show enough prevalence to say that mercury was used at these burials, inferring cinnabar. However, until I have the standards established, I cannot say how much is used and what the quantity is and how that can overall say anything about these contexts. However, it's important to establish that this is preliminary research, and I'm hoping to establish those standards by going to local museums, scanning stuff that we know has cinnabar, and then to create those parameters so we can pinpoint exactly how much is being used at these sites. But we can say confidently that these burials do show mercury in the red paint on the mask or associated grave goods. To pinpoint a couple burials, first is Entierro 1, and this is a funerary mask associated with this. Entierro 1 consists of 3 individuals. The principal burial is an older noble woman placed in a seated flex position of the elites. She's decorated with a tumbaga crown, a golden funerary mask decorated immensely with cinnabar paint. They have 2 long wooden arms outstretched before her like the noble high elite men buried throughout the Middle Sican capital. Surrounding her is an array of arsenical copper grave goods, carefully wrapped in cloth and purposely crushed. Accompanying the primary burial is an individual laid out in an extended position, inferred to be a sacrifice victim meant to accompany the primary burial. And then the third individual found within the walls of the funerary context is situated in a way where they are eternally resting in a kneeling position, holding a cup for the older woman. Entierro 35 is a child's burial with the body laid out in the extended position, wrapped in a burial shroud. This burial includes a copper funerary mask overlaid in fabric and bird feather and painted with cinnabar. This individual includes multiple packets of copper feathers and burial offerings surrounding the body, inferring that this may have been a tomb that was visited after the interment of this individual. Entierro 38 is an adult burial with the body laid out in a seated flex position, wrapped in a burial shroud made of copper. They are dressed in a funerary mask, painted red with cinnabar, and decorated with thin copper headdress. Surrounding the body are many cristole ceramic vessels and other burial offerings, also covered by burial shroud. Entierro 77 was found to be seated and flexed body and was wearing a cinnabar painted bronze Sican funerary mask, which was of low quality compared to any other documented gold Sican mask. A textile with dozens of sewn-in bronze sheep plaques were in front of the body. Dozens of other bronze objects were also included. As emulated of high elite burials, a pair of outstretched wooden arms rather than metal arms were placed in front of the body, holding a simple bronze toomey knife. A single gold object was present, a necklace centerpiece in the form of a depilator, that's the little bird. The bioarchaeological results found that this individual was an adult male with indicators of cribroorbitallia, degenerative joint disease, and dental calculus. Entierro 83, situated on the left, consists of a heavily disturbed burial laid out in an extended position. This burial includes parts of a funerary mask and other bronze artifacts. Red pigment is seen on the funerary mask and near the legs of this person. Entierro 89, seated on the right, shows the skull of this individual, an incredibly disturbed funerary context that was buried in the seated position with the funerary mask, copper feathers, 48 cristole ceramic vessels, and evidence of cinnabar found on the anatomical right orbit and the maxilla, as seen pointed out. And Entierro 97 is buried in the seated position with grave goods, including an elaborate headdress, a funerary mask coated in cinnabar, Sican deity vessel of the highest quality, a necklace of sodalite and quartz beads with a golden depilator necklace centerpiece that was documented and consists of high elite burials. This burial consists of an adult individual displaying signs of BJB. So with the PXRF, there's a lot that you can understand presence or absence of cinnabar. However, not everyone has access to this material. Sometimes you're just an undergrad in the field and you don't know what you're touching. You don't know if it has mercury or not. So I am in the preliminary steps of trying to create a model that we can identify cinnabar, not confidently, but confidently enough if we know how careful we should be handling it. So using D-Stretch, which is a plug-in that you can use in order to create filters, used in cave rock art, you can also see the different ways that the pigments are highlighted and overlaid. This is something that can also be downloaded as an app, not free on your phone, but it's something that you can use in the field while you're working. When looking at these, this is all the same mass from NTR1, but you can see the different parts of the red are highlighted using different of the filters. In comparison, for NTR 143, this was a piece of cinnabar that was the highest percentage I found of highly concentrated mercury. In comparison to the mass above, you can see what parts of the mass are highlighted the same color red as depicted below. I am still trying to see if I can apply this to every mass to see if the parts highlighted help indicate cinnabar a bit more than other items, but it's something that I'm still working on the process. But if you can see that, like, for example, this one, the bright red is seen in certain areas right there, I think that might be where the cinnabar is locally located on the mass. Also with D-Stretch, when you use this app, you don't realize when you take a photo with your phone, it already pre-filters it with your phone. However, if you take stuff in a raw image, you can still get the colors, but you can see there's a slight variation. So I took the same part of the mass, which is identical, but one using a raw image and one using a regular image, and I put it through the hex code process for both printing or digital using Adobe Illustrator. While these colors are pretty similar, they're not exact, and this could make the difference when you are analyzing if you are looking at cinnabar or hematite. I'm hoping in the next couple of years to come up with a color spectrum so we can identify which color reds and which color reds have cinnabar or hematite, but I'm still working on the process of it. Then using the Munsell color system, which you all probably know if you're archaeologists, but you use three main things: hue, value, and chroma. So when looking at this, hue consists of the color, like red or yellow, and how many parts of that are included to create the color. Value includes the lightness or darkness of the color, and chroma includes the saturation or brilliance of the color. Now, everyone thinks they see color the same, but we really don't. So I'm trying to come up with a way that we can systematically look at the same color, even though our eyes are all slightly different. So using this mask from NTR1, I compared two color patches that are very similar and very close to each other. And using just my eyes, I used the Munsell color system, which you can have the physical book, or there's now a digital app that you can use in the field. And I found that the colors, while similar, are still slightly different. This could make the difference of if you are touching mercury or not mercury. And I am hoping to further develop this so that I can create a spectrum range of what's safe and what's not safe. But when you are working on this material in the field, a lot of times you are trusting previous archaeologists who have examined it, and they use the Munsell color system themselves. Everyone sees color different. So I'm trying to create a systematic way for us to use previous archaeologists' research, if we come to their research 50 years from now or so, that we can see color the same way they did by documenting it a bit more specifically. So with this research, I am hoping to continue it so we can have more safety protocol in the field if you happen to work with cinnabar, happen to work with bioarchaeology, or happen to work with mortuary archaeology. But overall, we found that the individuals we thought didn't have cinnabar did, and the ones that we thought did not. A lot of times you don't know what you're working with. So I'm trying to create a way that we can identify that a bit more specifically, and that we can understand why these individuals at Waka Las Ventanas are teetering the line between high elite and commoner, but seem to be situated somewhere interdisciplinary in between. I realize I am done with time, so I'm gonna let you guys go now. Thank you.